Hey, everybody. It is Men Cry in the Car podcast. As always, I am Lynn Meyer, the HRT coach, which stands for Healing, Restoration, and Transformation. Today, I don't need you to say anything. I know it's been a few weeks. Stay focused, okay? Life happens, and we're back, okay? So, but today, episode 25, 25 episodes. Can y'all believe that? I say that every time, but still, 25 episodes. We started this thing last year in May, 25 episodes later. We have a dear friend of mine. So, usually I bring people on I really don't know. But this guy used to be my boss, y'all. He used to be my supervisor. He used to be my manager, whatever you want to call it. He's a cool dude, just real laid back. So I don't even want to be like a whole formal name. He's Rene to me, but he's so many different things. But I want to bring him on because he's doing many wonderful things with his family, in the military, in his marriage, in entrepreneurship. It's all these different things. But I want to bring him on today. And before I do that, it is Black History Month. Y'all see I'm rocking all things black today. I got my queen switch on as well. And so we want to just give honor to those that went before us. We want to celebrate those that are in small businesses, large businesses, Black owned companies, all the things. We appreciate you. We support you. And so without further ado, we're going to bring on Rene. Come on, Rene.
Hey, what's going on, Lynn? Thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate that.
Thank you for being here. So, Rene, I had your bio, and I'm just gonna be straight honest. It's on something else. I can't even pull it up. So would you please? I know you sent me everything. You did what you were supposed to do.
It's
I
all
just don't have it
good.
with me. Would you please tell the people who Rene is?
Well, Renee has a lot of things. Renee, first and foremost, is a man of God. Um, I have a walk with God that I continue to work on building that relationship. He is my everything. Second, I am a husband to a beautiful and lovely wife, Christina, and we have two beautiful children, in which we love so dearly. I can talk about those kids all day. Um, I'm also in the military for 19 years and counting. Man, I can't believe it's been that long, almost 20 years. Wow. And then I'm an entrepreneur in the healthcare industry. And yeah, I want to say I'm going on 19 years being within in the healthcare industry. And so I work with physicians, nurse practitioners, basically all type of providers, and helping them start up their medical practice, consulting, and providing all the necessary support services that they need,
Hmm.
as
Rene,
well
you
as a philanthropist too. So
exactly. I'm like you over there being all like, I just do this and I just do that, and then you list all these things. First of all, yes, I did mention military, but every
mhm.
single time I see you and those that have been so selfless,
Mhm.
I say thank you for your service and also thank you for not being selfish because
Thank you.
I could not have done that. And I thank you, because you're here. And then for those that have just said, this is what we want to do, it takes a special person to really say, this is what you want to do, or you enlist in those things because it's a difficult place to be in. And I know that we may get into that when it comes to talk about things. But first of all, before we really get into everything we want to talk about, tell me who Renee was growing up. Like, tell us about like your household, your parents, your childhood.
Sure.
What did that look like for you?
Oh my goodness, taking me back to memory lanes here. Growing up, um, I grew up with two older sisters. I was the third child for a while, and then, and then eventually, my younger brother. He was born in '94.
Hmm.
We were raised in Miami, Florida. Both of my parents, they ended up, and I guess let me back up a little bit here.
Okay.
Prior to them coming to the United States,
Hmm.
uh, they were in Haiti, and both of them left Haiti to go to St. Martin. And they lived there for a while. And what was interesting, from what my mom told me, when they were in St. Martin, they were kind of waiting for their paperwork to come through. And at the time, they were deporting a lot of Haitians that
Mhm.
were going to St. Martin, and but luckily their paperwork came just in time after living there for a couple of years. And but in St. Martin, my two older sisters were born there. My mom was pregnant with me in St. Martin, and just before I was born, they got their visa, went to Miami, and then I was born there.
Mhm.
And the crazy thing is that I think maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago, my second oldest sister was telling me that she has a like a British citizenship. I was like, what? I was like, aren't you a citizen? She was like, no. She was like, I still have my British citizenship because St. Martin is owned by the British. I was like,
Yep.
wow, I didn't even realize that. So that was kind of an eye opening for me at that time too. But
Mhm.
um, definitely forever grateful that my parents were able to come to the States. And, I just remember just growing up, just having a normal childhood. Whenever you're raised in a Haitian household, there's always great food. I mean, you have your sauce-pois, your legumes. I mean, these are just, some of the well-known Haitian dish. You have your guyo, your bun and pizzy, and a couple other, good food there. And so those are like my fondest memories. And my parents, their friends, always coming over, eating, being able to play outside, and just living a normal childhood. And not to say that my parents, they worked hard, and we didn't have, like name brand shoes or anything like that, early on in our childhood. But we understood that what we had, we were good with it, and we just learned to appreciate the things that we had. But as we started growing up, I remember I fell in love with basketball,
Mhm.
and I remember begging my dad for like a basketball hoop, right? And so
Mhm.
my dad goes and literally just buys me a basketball rim with no backboard, with nothing. So I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, okay, well, how's this going to work? So I remember
Mhm.
in my backyard, I found some extension cords, and my friend and we
Mhm.
wrapped it against the metal.
Mhm.
I can't remember the name of it, but we had some metal posts, and we just kind of wrapped um, the wires around it, and the rim was kind of slanted a little
Yeah.
bit, but it was good enough for us. And I was like, man, we would be out there having epic basketball games, and man, it just we
Mhm.
just played all day long. And then
Mhm.
from there, I got involved into sports, and I think that really took me to a different place, and it really changed my life for the better too, playing sports.
Yeah. When
Hmm.
you said your dad bought you the basketball ring, I was really trying not to laugh that hard, only because like parents just like when Will Smith came up, like parents just don't understand. It's like, sir,
Yeah,
I asked for, but anyway, the fact that he was supportive and he was like, well, this is how I understand. I'm gonna buy this for my son.
yeah,
Did you find spaces or like or the experiences when your dad was supportive of you or to you in your
yeah.
life growing up?
Um, so I always describe my dad this way.
Mm,
My dad was a man of very few words.
okay.
Um, he understood that I love basketball, right? I mean, that was just my passion growing up. And so my dad, I remember one day my sister telling me about a coach that was coaching, boys that were my age at the time. I was like 10, 11 years old. And I remember begging my dad. I was like, Dad, please, please, please. I was like, can you take me to the park? I want to go check out this basketball team. And I think maybe after like 2 or 3 days, he said, okay, come on, let's go.
Mhm.
And ever since then, man, he would just always take me to my practices, and so he would support me that way. My dad made sure that I got what I need. I mean, especially my mom. Just making sure that I got to my basketball practices. Now, I'll say this, and this is
Okay.
something I always tell my kids. I can't like my dad, out of all the years playing, he came to only one basketball game. and that was my senior year in high school when we
Mhm.
had our senior year, our last basketball game at home in high school.
Mhm.
He came to that, and I was just like, man, like my dad is actually here. But you know, I wish he could have came
Yeah.
to more, but my dad was just a very laid back type of guy. And I always tell people this. He never, like, I can't remember a time when he told us, "Hey, I love you," but we knew he loved us.
Okay.
Like
So,
they're just that way. I mean, you just know, right?
mhm.
So yeah,
You just know. And I had a feeling you were going to go there because you said my dad was a man of few words. I was like, I wonder if
yeah,
the few words were, I love you, or the few words that were removed from the home was, I love you. And so he showed you he loved you through being a provider.
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
How
And
else did you know that your dad loved you?
um, for him,
Hmm.
literally, when I say he didn't really say much,
Hmm.
um, my dad was just a guy who. So I'll describe him like this.
Okay.
He would go to work, come home, and he either would drink his tea, and he always had a chair, and he sat by this window just looking outside all day, right?
Hmm.
Or he'll be outside gardening, just
Hmm.
planting flats in the front yard, making the house look good, or what have you. But that's all what he wanted to do. But whenever I would come home, I would say, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" Now, my dad wasn't a hugger; he wasn't that affectionate type, but he'd just say, "Hey, how you doing?" So I'm doing good. Okay, great. But if I needed something, he was there. He was there.
Hmm.
And I mean, I just think about the countless things that he would just buy for us. Whenever we wanted it, he would make every effort to get us the things that we need. But I just know whenever I used to come home with my report card and I would bring it to him,
Hmm.
he used to always look at it and say, "My son, good job, my son. I'm happy, good." And I mean, to me, it may not seem
Yeah,
much to anybody, but it was everything, for
of
me.
course.
But
Of course. But it's something about the validation of the father.
yeah, yeah,
Like
absolutely.
we just have to have that validation from our father. Like
Yeah.
the boys and little girls, because it seems not all the time. It seems like the mom or the mother is going to be the most nurturing. But
Hmm.
it's something about when your father validates you as a person, as
Yeah.
a great student, as whatever. It's just like, okay, yes. It's like the frosting on a cake, right?
No, for sure. And the thing is, like my dad, just early on, I want to say maybe as early as I don't know, sixth grade, maybe fifth grade. And
Mhm.
again, his English wasn't the best,
Yep.
but I just remember him. He would come to me like, "Hey, can you read this letter for me and tell me what it's saying?" Or I would have to get on the phone and
Yeah.
talk with these, companies, and so for me, it's like, wow, I was just a little kid, didn't really know much about, but I had to kind of learn and figure it out.
Hmm.
And so he had a lot of trust in me from that standpoint. And I remember before he even passed, right? I
Hmm.
mean, I would handle his finances, his insurance, made sure I paid his cell phone bill. Like he trusted me. Anything he needed, he would just call me up and just, like, "Hey, I need help with this." But what we had in common that we loved, I mean, there wasn't probably a day that went by anytime Miami Heat played, he would always
Hmm.
call me up like, "Hey, did you see Miami Heat play?" I'm like, "Yep, I saw it." And he loved Dwayne Wade. So he would always talk about the Miami Heat, and we would just have good times about that.
I love that.
Hmm.
I love those bonds that sons and fathers have. Like
Yeah.
it does, like you said, it meant the world for him to say, "My son." And it's not a small thing. It's one of those things like we yearn for that. We learn
Yes.
to be desired by our parents. Like we yearn, and we want that so much to be accepted. So you had that with your father, and I love
Absolutely.
that. Now I remember when we were working together.
Hmm.
You were it was your mom that
Yeah.
you were taking care of and things like that. How was
Mhm.
how was the relationship with you and your mom growing up?
Um, it was good. I think if I had to choose which parent was the the strictest, my mom was.
Both.
My dad.
Your parents
Um,
are Haitian. Both.
yeah. well, I'm surprisingly, my dad was a laid back type of guy. Now, don't get me wrong.
Really?
I
Okay.
was a handful. I mean, I'll tell you that I was a handful when I was really young.
Hmm.
Um, and I think for me, I always think back. I used to always wish I had an older brother. So I used to go bother my sisters whenever they were playing with their Barbies and stuff, and
Of
they'd be
course.
like, "Stop, stop, stop."
Of course. I can see you doing that.
But
But don't
but
let anybody mess with your Power Rangers. Okay.
yes, yes, man. See, you remember,
I remember.
man. Listen, my sisters have stories about those Power Rangers for days. I
Yeah.
used to love Power Rangers. I used to have a collection
Yeah.
of it. But yeah, my dad, like, again, he was pretty laid back for the most part. But my mom, man, she, I would always say she is the rock and the foundation of the family.
Yeah.
I mean, that lady would work her butt off, but she just didn't play, man. I mean, I was more scared of her than I was with my dad. Times whenever I get a butt whooping, boy, I would go run right behind my dad. Said, "Daddy, please, please help me, please help me." Man, I tell you,
I love
memories.
that. I love that. So when you have to look at a parent, you were loved by both of your parents,
Yeah, absolutely,
and
absolutely.
there's no comparison of who loved you more. I'm not saying
No,
that.
no, no.
What I am asking you is, where did you feel like you found the comfort to express yourself, like emotionally, or with your thoughts, or with your feelings?
Well, I mean, great question, Lynn. Honestly, I didn't do much of that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Um, Growing up, like, again, my family wasn't really the type of family um, that said "I love you" or hug
Mhm.
each other. But I'll say this, man, probably is not maybe 5 years ago.
Mhm.
It's probably when my sisters and I were just saying, "Hey, I
Mhm.
love you." Whenever we get off the phone, we say, "I love you." For me, like, it just felt odd because, like, we were never that tight, right? We say, "Okay,
Yeah.
later," and then we go our separate ways. But the older I'm getting, I'm realizing the importance of telling your family I love you, hugging them, um, you know, not just having surface level conversations, to be able to have, deep conversations, because people go through things and you have to really make sure that you're checking on your people. Like, even for my mom, telling her I love you whenever I get off the phone. I think even with my dad too, man. I mean, whenever I used to
Mhm.
talk to him, I mean, there were times
Mhm.
whenever I would say, I love you, and 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 I
Yeah.
think, probably a handful of times he probably said it back too, but I just know for him it was like, I'm not used to that.
Yeah.
But but at the end of the day, I know, again, he loved us. And like, even now, my mom, she'll say it a lot too. She'll say, "Hey, hey,
Mhm.
I love you," so I'll say it back as well.
Mhm. So where do you think you got comfortable expressing yourself with your feelings and your emotions? Like, what was
Honestly,
there a I know I interrupt you, but my question is that, and was there an experience or something that happened for you just like, you know what, I think I'm safe to share my feelings and my emotions now?
I mean, I think it had to be my wife that really
Mm.
started getting me into that mode, because when I started dating
Oh, we
her,
love Christina.
you know, she would want to hold my hand. I'm just like, oh, this is awkward for me, right?
Mhm.
But as time went on, I got used to it, and then for me, I started kind of questioning myself a little bit, like, why do I feel awkward? But then it forced me to think back when I was like, man, you know what? I don't remember just having that, just being affectionate with family like that.
Right.
But slowly but surely, she got me out of that mode. And for me, and I think to some extent, I can still be that way. Like, even with my daughter, like, whenever she'll come home, I'll
Mm,
probably give her like a fist bump, but then I'm like, man, come here, give her a hug. Same thing with my son. So I want them to know what it's like. So it's just over the years, just slowly breaking out of that and
mm.
really normalizing that, right, in my household.
Correct.
Because again, right, my
Yeah.
Christina, she's very big on that, and I'm
Mhm.
glad that she is because it's helping me to get better in that area for sure.
Hmm. And continue to do that because Christina is the best thing that's ever happened to you, for sure. I already know that. Look, I already know that.
She is,
But because
yes,
you
yes.
have allowed your wife to show you or bring you into a space where you weren't comfortable, you were not familiar, and you allowed yourself to say, you know what, I feel safe here.
Mhm.
I feel like, I'm not judged. I could be transparent. I could be vulnerable. I could be all these things with her. And
Yeah.
then you realize like there's other times I can really show up in this way, especially when it comes with your children. Um,
Mhm.
when you realize, oh, I gave him a fist bump, like, you know what, let me give you a hug or whatever.
Right.
This is what I tell people, and this is what I want you to answer to. Um, I tell parents, I said, the best way for me, my opinion only, the best way to be a parent is to remember when you were a child.
True.
If you can remember when you were a child, then most times you won't make those mistakes. I'm only speaking on my life, I'm only speaking on mine.
Mhm.
If I'm in a situation and my children have come to me about something, instantly my brain says, remember when you were a child? And then I show up in the way that I wish my parents would have shown up.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We all were children at one point, right?
Mhm.
And we all acted in certain ways, made mistakes as well. And I think when we look back at certain situations, especially if we know our parent acted in a way that may have left a bad taste in our mouth, I think it really helps to reflect on that so that way you can kind of look at the situation and think, well, so now that I have children,
Yeah.
how do I want to show up, right, in these situations? Because depending on what the situation is, it may
Mhm.
determine whether your kids open up to you if something else happened or not, right? And
Correct.
so that's where you want to be very, very careful. What my daughter's 10 going on 11, my son is 5
Yeah.
going on 6. And so this is a conversation that my wife and I, we talk about all the time, right? We want our children to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Especially like, whenever they get to that age, whenever they are interested in somebody, I'm like, ugh, I kind of
Hmm.
dread that a little bit, but
Hmm.
it's going to happen and it's life.
Yeah.
And as a parent, you want to be able to give that sound advice that maybe we wish somebody could have really given us, right? um and so it's just a lot of those things that I reflect on a lot
Hmm.
about.
Yeah. And I like that you do that because, and the reason why I brought that up is because not everyone one that is uncomfortable or a negative situation. I do remember when I was a child, just like your family, my parents didn't say, we love you, I love you. They didn't. Of
Hmm.
course, my dad showed it as being a provider. Of course, of course.
Hmm.
Because he's a solid generation. Okay, so they were solid generation. Like my parents are old. I think we talked about this. Like my parents are old, old. Like
Hmm.
my mom is going to be 89, 89 this year.
Wow.
No, 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 no. My mom's gonna be 90 this year. So my
Wow.
parents are
That's
exactly. My
impressive.
parents are
Sheesh.
old, and it's
Yeah.
truly a blessing. So
Mhm.
growing up like that, we as the siblings, as their children, said, no, 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 we don't want to do that. And we started. I think I was probably late 20s or early 30s. I don't know who mentioned it. I really don't. But we said when we see each other, we would start hugging because we grew up in a family where we didn't hug or whatever.
Right,
We didn't say
right.
we loved you. It was like we gotta stop that. So then we start passing it on to our children. So when we would see our
Mhm.
nieces and nephews or whatever, then we would hug as we wanted to make that like normal.
Yes,
Because
normalize it.
we didn't want to grow up and then not hear I love you or hugs or whatever. It's like we gotta change it. And so
Yeah.
that's what I was talking about also when I said remember when you were a child. Remember
Hmm.
how you felt when you didn't get that hug, or remember how you felt when you didn't receive that recognition. Not when you got in trouble all the time, but just remember how you felt, right?
Right, right.
But anyway, that's what I tell parents all the time. I say, if you ever want to know if you being a parent where you if you're a good or a bad parent, good or bad, being judgment, just
Sure.
remember when you were a child for sure.
No,
So,
absolutely.
Renee,
Absolutely.
I definitely because I know there's a lot of things I want to talk to you about, but I definitely want you to talk about if you if you don't mind,
Hmm.
just a little bit of the military, and I will give you this question. So,
Sure.
being in the military, I know it has been reserves. I don't know, was it active duty as well too?
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
in the beginning, yes, I did 5 years active duty, and the
Mhm.
rest of my years has been in the Navy Reserves.
Okay.
Hmm.
And all of that is still wonderful because my question still applies. When
Sure.
it comes to that, what emotions did you feel being in an environment that was, in my opinion, this is just me saying it. Renee is not saying it for those that watch it. Being in a strict, rigid, just not flexible to the letter, and you cannot make a mistake. You can't make errors. You got to be in
Yeah.
that type of environment or space. How did that affect you?
Great question. I have to give credit to my Navy recruiter at the
Mhm.
time, Petty Officer Cherry. I remember maybe a week prior of, for me to leave to go to
Mhm.
boot camp. Um, the main thing he told me, he said, "Listen, I want you to remember this." And he said, "When you go to boot camp, don't take nothing personal." Okay, he said they're gonna yell at you. Everything is gonna be very strict. You have to follow, the rules. Like you have to make sure that you are on point. But he said, don't take anything personal.
Mhm.
And for me, by that time, I think for the most part, I followed directions very well. And so once I got there, I didn't struggle at all, not one bit. I think also just being an athlete in high school,
Yeah.
I was in the best shape of my life, so
Mhm.
I really didn't have any issues whatsoever. Um, and what was interesting is that me being in boot camp with
Mhm.
people that were older or even yeah, well yeah just a lot older than me,
Yeah.
how they didn't make it through because you're going into a situation where they're basically breaking you down,
Yeah.
um, but then they're building you up at the
Mhm.
same time, and that initial process, it can be shocking, right? It
Mhm.
can be very shocking to people who or mentally may not be ready for it. And
Yeah.
again, I like to think back, maybe why did I do just fine? And I think a part of it too, I knew I used to always tell myself after high school I'm going to college, or in this case I'm gonna go to the military. And when I
Mhm.
decided to go to the military, I kind of had an idea as to what to expect, and all the yelling. I mean, waking you up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I mean, your bed had to
Yeah.
be made like corners.
Hospital corners. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, everything
Yeah.
had to be done right. The way
Yeah.
you fold your shirt, the way you fold your socks, your underwear, your pants, your
Mhm.
shirts, everything had to be, I think, like a quarter inch away from like you know, from the wall of your locker. They would come and like
Mhm.
inspect. And so, once I understood how everything was working, then I didn't have any issues. But people who were struggling, I was able to also help them out, and also make great relationships. People that I serve with to this day. Just being able to keep in contact with them. But again, you have to be mentally prepared for that. But I think if you
Yeah.
still have that mentality, especially like if you're coming from the streets and and you're disobedient, you don't want to listen to, then it will be tough. It'll be tough situation for you. So and so I've seen those people that just didn't last long because they thought they can still
Mhm.
do whatever they wanted, and it doesn't work that way.
It definitely doesn't, especially in the military. In any branch of the military, it's not going to work that way for sure
Correct,
at
correct,
all. Look,
correct,
at all.
correct. And
So,
mhm.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just remember this one incident. Oh my gosh, I'll never forget this day. This guy, I can't remember his name, but he he worked out, right. Usually in the morning, we'll go do some training, running around, push-ups, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a bag to put your dirty clothes in, and he actually took his sweaty shirt and he threw it in his locker room. And one of our RDCs was walking around doing random inspections, and he lifted up his bunk and looked into his locker, and he found a sweaty, dirty shirt. And and everybody, was like really shocked because we just heard somebody said, get over here now. We're like, whoa, what's going on? And um,
Yeah.
the RDC told the young man at the time to stand at attention, and then he held the sweaty shirt in his hand. He said, "What's this? What's this?" And the guy was like, "I don't know. Does it stink?" Oh my gosh! When I tell you, we bust out laughing. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" But we were so scared at the same time because it's like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's gonna get us in trouble." And sure enough, they made us do push-ups, jumping jacks for
Mm-hmm.
hours.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that dude ended up crying, man. But
Mm-hmm.
that was just one of those tough lessons that he had to learn, and really all of us had to
All of
learn.
you had to learn.
So yeah.
Oh, so that that kind of put me somewhere else. But let me stay focused. Look, stay focused. But when it comes, since you and Christina have been married, how long
We are coming up on 19 years in
now?
April.
19. Yes, so 19 years. So
Hmm.
yeah, 19 and 19. I'm gonna
Yes.
remember that now. Okay.
Hmm.
So for 19 years, now you're in a space where you
Hmm.
can feel like I can share how I'm feeling. I don't have it all together. Some days I'm not good. Some days I am. Some days I don't feel strong, but you're in that space right now.
Yeah.
Since you are in that space, like how? Oh, okay. Just for a second. I had some issues on this side. Since you are in that space, like, what do you think you're teaching your children?
Well, I'm teaching them a lot of things that I've learned along the way. Um, Especially when it comes to communication. Man, I tell you, like you and I, we're communicating right now,
Mhm.
but sometimes when you're in a relationship, it's like, man, sometimes it's not that easy. And so there's things that I had to learn about myself, right?
Mhm.
And especially like for me, I could be passive aggressive at times, right? And I've always heard of that term, but I didn't really understand all the different behaviors of it.
Yeah.
And so I had to, and I'm just looking it up, and man, I'm like, this is kind of me,
Yeah.
just like, oh my gosh.
Exactly.
So and so like I would tell anybody, to especially men and women, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And things doesn't have to be bad to seek therapy, but
Yeah.
seek therapy, right? Just because there's things about yourself that you may not necessarily be aware of. And I like to think about it, when you're
Yeah.
inside looking out, you don't
Mhm.
realize what people outside looking in can see, right? and
Of
so
course.
and so it's important you know to be able to do that.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't until I started to uh, kind of learn, certain behaviors. I was like, man, I wouldn't want to date me,
Yep.
I'm like, man, I could be this way. and
Yep.
and so for me, it's just making, really learning and understanding, and
Mhm.
now making sure that I can be assertive, right? Or, um, you know, if I know I may not like something, or if something that somebody did and it made me feel some type of way, then I need
Mhm.
to be able to, communicate that in a way. And it's not necessarily saying, oh, you did this to me or you did that, but more so
Right.
like, hey, listen, I felt upset the other day when I saw you do this, or
Mhm.
when you said that, right? Because
Mhm.
I think if anybody cares for you and they understand what they did, how it made you feel, then you can actually get somewhere, right? Because like, oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you felt that way, right? And so you just don't want to walk around being upset at somebody and they not really know why you're upset.
Mhm.
Nobody's a mind reader. And so those are things that I've had to learn. And so for my children is, I think as parents, you can kind of see a little glimpse of yourself, right? So now it's like, I recognize, like I could tell my daughter, I recognize this, and hey, um, let me talk to you about this, right? Because I don't want you to be my age and just not realizing. Whereas if I can catch something early on in my son and my daughter, then you know what? Let me educate you. Let me show you. Let me help you understand. Like these are tools of ways of how to effectively communicate. Because what I don't want to happen is you not have strong relationships, or you lose a friend because of you're not able to communicate well, or because you're just displaying behaviors that can be passive aggressive, or what have you. And so I think the earlier I can educate my kids, the better off they'll be. And that's really the point, right? Is to make sure the
Mhm.
next generation is better than the one before.
Yeah, and that is the point.
Hmm.
And also, to be the example with our own actions and not just
Yeah,
words, because
absolutely.
we all. Let me keep it on myself. Um, I try to be the example to my children. Okay,
Hmm.
instead of saying, "Don't do this," and then they see me doing something. No. So
Right.
my 11-year old, she will ask, "Mommy, are you okay?" No, 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 no,
Hmm.
no, 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 no. And every time I hear her say that, I tell her it's not your job to take care of mommy. It is
Hmm.
great that you see something that's going on and that you are concerned. You
Right.
don't take care of mommy. Mommy take okay. I
Hmm.
said because I don't want you to be the child like me growing up like, oh my God, is everything? No,
Right.
you can read the room and you can see like what you can do for yourself, but you don't take care of mommy, you don't take care of daddy. Those are
Yeah.
our feelings. That's not your job.
Right. Right.
So but for me, I do allow her to see me cry. I do allow her to see me upset, like all because I want her to see all my children. I want them to see all the things, right? I just
Sure.
don't want you
Sure.
thinking that mommy's always sad, or mommy's always angry, or mommy's always happy. Like I want you to see all of me, simply
Right.
because,
Right.
especially my baby boy, and he's 7 now, and he's 7 now. Can you believe that he's 7?
Wow.
So he's 7, and I don't want him thinking that it's not cool to cry. Like I don't want him thinking that it's only acceptable for him to be angry. We're
Yeah.
not doing that. Uh,
Right. Right.
it's
And that's
okay to
really,
cry. Yeah.
yes. Yeah. And too, and that's something that I've really been thinking about ever since you started this show.
Uh huh.
Um, because again, I have to think back when I was young, playing sports in Miami, Florida. um, you can see where coaches like, man, stop crying, or be
Yeah.
tough. And so that is, I think, just for men, right? We grow up that way, that hey, you cry, you soft. And so when you grow up that way, then it creates almost like an unnecessary wall, right? And it becomes a
Good.
defense mechanism,
Yes.
to where now it's like, man, I'm tough, man. Like nothing phased me, like it's unnecessary, right? So
Who-
now,
Yes.
it's like, for me, I tell you, like, Christina could probably count on one hand, which honestly is really sad, but she could
Mhm.
count on one hand of how many times she's probably seen me cry.
Mhm.
And so for me, it's like, man, I need to be able to tap in more in that vulnerability space,
Mhm.
because when you can tap into that, I think
Yes.
for one, it really does something for your partner to be like, man, he really trusts me to even be this way, right?
Yes.
But also too, I think about my son, right? So it's like, okay, you
Mhm.
know what? He cries, that's fine. It's
Mhm.
okay to cry, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, hey, you know, whatever's bothering you, let's talk about it, right? Because I want to make sure that he has a healthy um, or a balance emotions, I guess, if you will, but just
Mhm.
making sure that you showing your emotion and crying doesn't dictate whether you're soft or anything, but it's okay. You have feelings. You are human,
That's right.
right?
That's
So
right.
yeah, it's important.
It's so important for them to see everything.
Yeah.
Um, because I tell them, I said, there's no bad feelings in here. There's not like bad feeling. What are those? Feelings are feelings. They're gonna come. They're temporary, and they're gonna
Yes.
leave, and then you're gonna have another feeling. You're not always gonna be sad, mad, angry, all the things. You're not
True.
always gonna feel like that. So they're gonna only last for however long, and then they're gonna go. So I'll just tell you this. So like when my son gets upset, I let him cry. I don't care about that. We cry.
Hmm.
We do talk about it, and I say, okay, tell me, can you tell me the reason why you're crying? No, no,
Mm,
no, no, no. Okay, okay. Well, then tell me what happened. Then he'll tell me
right.
what happened. I'm like, okay, I would be angry too. And that's how we have to do. My parents didn't do that to us. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm
Yep.
teaching my son it is okay to have these big feelings. Okay,
Right.
and it is also okay to talk about these big feelings. Okay, when
Right.
he's not able to calm himself or regulate himself, he is only 7. A
Hmm.
lot of adults can't even regulate ourselves, and we are like big ages, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
we have taught them certain things. Like I do tapping. I show my son tapping. He'll push the wall like when he's angry. I say, you know what? You like to punch things. Punch your mattress. Punch your
Mm,
pillow. He
yeah.
does those things. He'll count to 100 or however long he needs to count, and he'll calm down. We breathe. We do all these things
Sure.
because hitting, we don't need to hit because we're
Right.
upset. We don't
Mm,
need to punch the wall because we don't need to do those things
right.
where we feel because we're not regulated when those things happen. But
Mm.
that's what we do in the household.
No, that's good.
Now it is wonderful. It has definitely changed a lot of things. Now, do I also understand I am dealing with men in my practice and other clients that I have that have never been taught that because now they are really grown
Wow.
and they are crying in the car, which is
Yeah.
kind of like how this all came about with my husband and everything. They find
Mm,
themselves crying in the car, in the shower, and all these other places simply because, again, I know, men cry anywhere they find solitude. I get that.
true.
However, we want to create this space for men to
Yes.
get out of the car. You
Yes.
already talked about therapy. You already talked about like having a supportive wife. You are already talked
Hmm.
about like having your sisters and your mom. Like those things. A lot of times, men may not know they have that.
Hmm.
Sometimes they may not have it, but a lot of times those opportunities or those people are there and they are available, and we just don't tap into it. Okay,
True.
we just don't
Abs-
tap into it. But which does though gives me a little bit of segue of like what you're doing now. I know. Oh, this is what I wanted to say before we go into the segue. Remember when we got fired and they fired all of us? Now, in the beginning,
uh,
Renee, of course, it was not funny because we were like, "What? You gonna let all of us go? Like
yeah,
all
I
of us?"
remember.
But
I
I was just like,
remember.
that could have been that was the best thing for me, and
Yeah.
I believe that was the best thing for you too. Like, what were your emotions around that? I kind of like want to know.
Um. Hmm. You know, timing is everything.
It is.
So I remember when they were letting us go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was, I was disappointed
Mm-hmm.
because, and honestly, I think when I first heard the news, I thought about all you guys. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
that's where my mind went. I'm like, man, so we're gonna let all these people go, right?
I know.
Um, I truly believe it could have been avoided, but that's a
Yeah.
different topic,
Yep.
you
Right.
know.
Right.
But once the decision, was made, and then obviously had to break the news to you guys. Um, I wanted to make sure that it didn't happen quickly, right? Because there was a conversation about, hey, yeah, we're gonna do this. I said, no, we can't do that. I said, listen, it's too many people to let go so quickly. I said, listen, we need to let them know way in advance. And I think, um, did you stay until the end or did
Yeah, I
you?
did. Well,
Okay,
I think that was the end. Yeah.
yeah, because um, yeah, because I think there were uh, like severance package, I think, if I'm
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
mistaken,
Mhm.
and so I think the goal was that as long as you guys are willing to stay on until the end, then
Mhm.
you can get your severance package. And I
Right.
think it was probably a couple of months to try to give everybody enough time to go find something else.
Mhm.
And I think it, for the most part, worked out for everybody, if I'm not mistaken. Right? I
It
can't
did.
recall
It
somebody
did.
leaving and not having anything else to go to. So,
Mhm.
and then yeah, I think for me, it was, man. I think it was coming to down to like a couple of weeks. I didn't find anything, and I can't remember if I was worried or not, but I know I was interviewing with a couple of places,
Mhm.
and eventually I ended up going with Medical City. So I knew once my last day was here, that following week I was going to start at Medical City
Mhm.
Hospital. So everything worked out the way it needed to. But
Mhm.
I definitely was, I was proud of you when I found out that you were kind of stepping out, on your own. I was like, man, because I know for me for years, I always wanted to work for myself and not have to necessarily work in the corporate healthcare world anymore. But
Mhm.
definitely when I found out you stepped out and you did it, I was like, yeah, man, I might need to do that.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
2019 was it for me. So,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Well, man, so this was interesting, right? I was at Medical City, and I was the area practice manager and the ethics and compliance officer for the North Texas division.
Yep.
And man, I tell you, it's man, it was so much work. But then uh, the the North Texas division was going through a restructuring at the time, and I remember um, uh, our my division director. He was like, "Hey, we're restructuring, so we have to. Your position is going to go away, but we want you to stay. So find another position, and we'll put you in."
Mhm.
And so at the time, I thought, I'm like, okay. I mean, I immediately just took off my ID. I had my laptop. I was like ready to go. He was like, oh no, no, no. He was like, no, your position is gonna go in 6 months, but I want you to seriously look and see what the position you want. And I was like, okay. And I remember driving home and telling my wife, but I wasn't worried, Lynn. I mean, I think it was the weirdest feeling I've ever had. I was thinking I was going to panic and be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to provide for my family? But
Mhm.
I can't recall ever really panicking, but just having a conversation with my wife and just, telling her, I'm not sure. Like, well, I remember telling her, I don't think I want to go back into the workforce. I want to work for myself, but I just don't know what to do.
Mhm.
And she ended up saying, she said, well, why don't you do healthcare consulting? I mean, you've been in healthcare for all these years. You started up a lot of these practices for these different organizations. You've
Yep.
managed them. You've hired providers. And I remember just thinking, like, man, that would be a great idea. But then again, the thought came into my mind, who's going to take me serious if I step out on my own, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be this little fish in such a big pond with more established healthcare consulting companies. Like, why would anybody take me on? But my wife said, listen, try it out for a year,
Mhm.
and if it doesn't work out, go back to the workforce. And honestly, that's all I needed. was that step of approval that she
Mhm.
believed in me, and
Mhm.
honestly, the rest was history. Now, it was a lot of work too.
Of
I
course.
remember, man, I just building my websites, figuring out exactly what I wanted to do, but and this is why, man, God timing is so perfect,
It
and
is.
right when I started the company, I got my tax ID. I filed the company with the state. I was still going to work to Medical City at the time,
Mm.
and I ended up getting a call from this psychiatrist, and he's in South Lake, and he was like, "Hey, I saw your profile on LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
I got this young lady who was working with me, but she's moving, and I need somebody who really has experience with like managing practices to help me out with my practice." And so he said, can you meet me for lunch? And so I ended up meeting him for lunch, and where he was talking about everything about his practice and what he wanted to do. And initially, he said, I would like to hire you, and I told him no. I
Mhm.
said, and like I told him, I'm not going to work for anybody, but I said I can take you on as my client. And
Correct.
so he said, "Can you do that?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I started my company, so I can
Mhm.
definitely take you on as as a client." And we agree on the monthly fee, and
Mhm.
that's what really kickstarted my company.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
and just through word of mouth, right? And so
Right.
this is why I truly believe word of mouth, you can never beat that. I mean, if you do great service, physicians know other physicians, and they'll just tell their
Correct.
right, and so clients will come that way. um, and then honestly, my goal was just to come in, be able to evaluate physician practices and be able to help them to improve in areas to so that way their operations will run a lot efficiently. But
Mhm.
then they started asking me, "Hey, can you help me out with billing? Hey, can you help me with
Mhm.
credit?" I'm like, "Listen, I don't want to get into that stuff." But the need was so great, and I
Mhm.
always remember a saying, and when I was in business school, they said, "Hey, wherever there is a need, there's a business, right? The business has to be
For
able to
sure.
meet the need, and so you'll always have business coming to you." So then I looked into the whole credentialing and medical billing, and it's like, well, all right, here it is now,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's what kickstarted it. And what, I'm 5 years into it now, or well, actually going, well, this April is going to make 6 years for me. So
Yep.
it's been amazing. And honestly, I always tell people, this is God's company, by the way. I just work in the company,
Correct.
because the way things just kind of started to happen organically, it's like, man, it's definitely not my doing. It's all
Um,
God. So I'm grateful, and that's why timing is impeccable. Because
mhm.
if I could have started a company 20 years ago, I would have. But honestly, I wasn't ready for it, right?
Mhm.
And so I had to kind of go through the different companies and learn and gain the necessary experience to be able to do this on my own. So
Mhm.
it's been amazing.
Mhm. And you continue to mention God. You and I both know that. God's timing is everything. And
Yeah.
also our obedience.
Yes.
Because
Oh,
without that, because he's going to show up when he needs to show up anyway.
yes.
But if we're not ready and if we're not obedient, then we're not
Hmm.
going to be able to see the things that he has for us.
Correct.
That's the
Correct.
reason why, like, that's the reason why you say you call this God's company, because it is. This is the reason why I am just a vessel on this platform as a host, but God orchestrated this.
Yeah, for sure.
That this was not an idea that I had
Yep. Yep.
at all.
And
I never
it,
thought I would do a podcast. Well, I take that back. I did think I was like, oh, maybe I should do a podcast, but I was like, no. But when my husband lost his brother,
mhm.
that's when God put it in my head. He says, "You're going to do this podcast," and I was like,
Mm,
I don't know. He says,
yeah.
and it's going to be called. I was like, oh, am I? But
Wow.
when he put it into my husband, I'm not. I don't know why. I thought I shared this with you. So I just did a little bit of it. So when he put it into my head, I'm listening, but my husband is speaking the words.
Yes,
And I just
absolutely.
started crying. I was like, oh. And
Abs-
that's when I knew. I said, Lord, this is yours. This is absolutely yours. I
Absolutely.
Renee, I didn't even tell him the name of the podcast. God
Wow.
told my husband the name of the podcast. He told me first,
Crazy.
and my husband started talking, and he says, men cry in the car. And I said,
Hmm. Yep.
and he
That is
kept talking, and then he said, I didn't know you had a podcast. And I looked back at him with tears in my eyes. I said, I do now. And that's how it started.
that is amazing, Lynn.
That's
Honestly,
how it
and
started.
I love that. I really do, and I'm glad that you
Yeah.
receive God's word and you follow through with it. And here you are today, and I'm
Hmm.
sure next year is going to be bigger and better
Oh, it's
every
gonna
year.
be so
Um,
good.
and you're right. Yes, definitely being obedient is key. For me, I'm usually up by 4:45.
Hmm.
To get ready to go to the gym.
Hmm.
I read the
Hmm.
Bible, and then I get down in prayer. And usually, one of my prayers is to, God, this is your company. Speak to me so that way I can lead this company. With your clear direction.
That's
And
right.
because I never like anybody that work in my company. Um, I don't give the persona that, hey, I'm the boss. You listen to
Right.
me. No, 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 no. Like, listen, we're here today because everybody, right? This is
That's
a
right.
company that helps us to feed our family,
That's
right?
right.
And so this is what it is. And so we have to make sure we do right by our clients, that we have to make sure that we put our best foot forward,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, this is a company that was created for us to feed our family, and who knows what God have in store. And I know, as being a human being, we can't see what the future hold, but you
Right.
have to trust and hope what God is doing, right?
Hmm.
And so in the meantime, it's doing the work that is required, and things will
Hmm.
come.
Hmm. Yeah. Man, this has been so good, Renee. Oh, look, our time is
Mhm.
almost over. Is there anything you want to share with us that you're doing with the company, in the community, like any events going on, anything that we need to know? How they can contact you, like through your company, like if they need your services, like share all those things.
Sure. Yeah. So the company is called Medical Practice Mastery. I work with physicians, nurse practitioners, chiropractors, therapists. I mean, it doesn't matter. Whatever your specialty is, if you're interested in starting a medical practice, I'm your guy. If you need medical billing, credentialing, administrative support, or just general healthcare consulting, I'm your guy. And so this company is mainly created to support providers with their practice. And so you can reach me at Rene at mpmastery.com. That is Rene at mpmastery.com. Our business phone number is 972 and again, just visit our website at mpmastery.com, and you'll see all the different services that we have. And I mean, if you search MP Mastery, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and even on X as well. And so you'll see the different contents that I've been posting for the business as well. So a lot of good stuff coming.
Awesome. Thank you. So Renee, if you had to say anything to any young man, any adult man, any man that's watching that will catch the replay, like what would you say, or what advice would you give, or what encouraging words would you leave with us today?
Yes. I would say to any young men or older men at that, um, don't be afraid to seek therapy to better understand yourself. I think we as people feel like we know ourselves very well, and to some extent we do, but there's just certain things that we just can't see, right? Because just like I mentioned, we're inside looking out, and we need somebody outside looking in to really help us to dig things out that's been buried in our soul for all these years, and to be able to open up. Because if we don't do that, you're basically mentally in prison, right? You can't live a joyful life when you're dealing with something from within that you continue to keep quiet about, and you're suffering in quiet. Why would you want to do that? Right? Continue to find the help, and be open to that. And for young men, it's okay to cry. I promise you, you will feel free. And the old ways of, being tough guy and all that, I'm telling you, that is not smart advice at all. So, again, for any men out there, definitely seek therapy, get your mind right, get yourself together, and live a joyful life that you're meant to live.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time with me. Thank you. It's so good seeing you. I haven't seen you in years.
I know.
Look, tell the family hello. Like, oh my God. Like, I can't
I
believe
will.
you're just getting so big and that is doing some great things. Look, and I'm going to share some pictures with you because I got to update some pictures with you as well. But
Yes.
hold on. I'm going to take you down. I'm going to end the show and I'm going to come back. I'm going to talk to you. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. If you have not already subscribed, please subscribe, please share, please comment, share, share, share. Get this out again. As I stated before, this is not my platform. This is for all the men that need it. You find your resources, you find your tribe, you find your community, you find each other here. And as I always say, y'all know, men, I see you, I hear you, I support you. Talk to you soon.